One evening, I found myself at the local Walmart, just trying to grab a few things before heading home from work. It was late, and the parking lot was dimly lit. There weren't many people around, I guess, since it was almost 11 p.m. at night. I parked my car and made my way towards the entrance. As I entered the store, I noticed a guy lingering near the entrance. He was just standing there and eyeing me with an intensity that really made me feel nervous. He had a creepy vibe, unkempt hair, and a leering grin that made my skin crawl. I tried to forget about how it made me feel and focus on the things I came there for. I think I made it about halfway through my shopping list when I saw that creepy guy again. I could feel eyes on me, and when I looked up, there he was staring at me from across the store. I tried to tell myself that maybe I was being paranoid and making it more than it really was, but every time I turned a corner, I caught a glimpse of him, lurking in the shadows like a predator, stalking its prey. I picked up my pace, trying to ignore the knot of fear building in my stomach. But when I reached the empty aisle where they kept the cleaning supplies, he appeared out of nowhere, blocking my path with a menacing grin. "Hey there, sweetheart," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "You look like you could use some company." My heart raced as I tried to edge past him, but he grabbed my arm with a grip like steel, his eyes filled with sinister intent. "Let's have some fun," he whispered, trying to drag me towards the nearby bathroom. Panic surged through me as I struggled to break free, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I tried to scream for help, but he placed his filthy hand over my mouth. As we got closer to the bathroom area, the store was eerily quiet, as if everyone had vanished into thin air. Just when I thought all hope was lost, I caught sight of a Walmart associate stocking shelves nearby. With all my strength, I broke free from the guy's grasp and sprinted towards the associate, tears streaming down my face. I blurted out what had happened, barely able to form coherent sentences. The associate, bless his heart, immediately sprang into action, calling for security and ensuring I was safe. As security arrived and apprehended the guy, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. But the horror of what could have happened lingered in my mind, a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurk in the darkness. The guy was taken away by the police, and I gave my statement, shaking with fear and gratitude that I had escaped unharmed. But the twist in the tale came later, when I found out the guy had a history of stalking and assault, and I wasn't his first victim. All I could think about was how I narrowly escaped a potentially tragic fate, and it made me realize the importance of staying vigilant and trusting my instincts. It has been quite a while since I shopped anywhere during late hours, and I don't plan on doing so ever again. You never know what kind of maniac is out there plotting on his next target. This is a story from my first day as a stock person at a 24-hour Walmart back in 2020. I never thought that my first night on the job would turn into a nightmare I'd never forget. It was a chilly autumn evening when I arrived for my shift. The store was quiet, the aisles bathed in the harsh fluorescent lights. I was excited but nervous, not knowing what to expect from my new job. As I made my way to the back of the store to start stocking shelves, I passed by the break room. I saw a man sitting alone at one of the tables, his back turned to me. He looked like a regular employee, wearing the Walmart uniform and sipping on a cup of coffee. I thought nothing of it at first, assuming he was another worker taking a break. But something about him seemed a little off. He sat perfectly still, not moving or making a sound, almost like he was lost in thought. I continued on with my tasks, trying to shake off the eerie feeling that lingered in the air. Hours passed, and the store grew quieter as it got later in the night. That's when I decided to take my own break and head to the break room. As I entered, I saw the same man sitting in the same spot, his posture unchanged. Off the bat, I thought this was odd, because how could he still be on break several hours later? Anyway, I greeted him with a friendly smile, but he didn't respond. It was like he didn't even notice me. Curious, I struck up a conversation, asking him how long he'd been working at the store. He turned to me slowly, his eyes meeting mine. That's when I noticed something unsettling, a hollow look in his eyes, as if he was staring into eternity. "I've been here a while," he replied, his voice quiet and distant. I tried to make small talk, asking about his shift and if he liked working at Walmart. But his answers were vague, almost cryptic. It was like he was lost in his own world, detached from reality. For the remainder of my break, I just sat there and ate my snacks. I figured that maybe the guy wasn't the type to talk much or just wasn't friendly. After my break was over, I returned back to putting away the stock on my cart. I still was a little curious about the man in the break room, so I asked another coworker about the mysterious man in the break room. I described him, a middle-aged man with a tired expression and a distant gaze. To my surprise, my coworker's face paled as I spoke. "That sounds like Jim," they said, their voice barely above a whisper. "Jim? Who's Jim?" I asked, confused. My coworker hesitated before revealing the truth. Jim was a former employee who had worked the graveyard shift for several years at this Walmart. Tragically, he had suffered a heart attack during his shift and passed away right there in the break room. I couldn't believe it. The man I had been talking to, the one who seemed so real, was actually the ghost of Jim, still lingering in the place where he had met his untimely end. As the realization sunk in, I felt a chill run down my spine. I had been conversing with a ghost, completely unaware of the supernatural presence in our midst. I cautiously returned to the break room, but this time, Jim was gone. It was as if he had never been there in the first place, but I knew the truth, and it left me shaken to the core. From that night on, I couldn't shake the feeling that Jim's spirit still lingered in the store, watching over us as we went about our nightly duties. I never spoke of my encounter to anyone else, fearing they would think I was crazy. But deep down, I knew the truth. Working the graveyard shift at Walmart had opened my eyes to a world beyond our own, a world where the line between the living and the dead was blurred. Luckily for me, I found a new job not too long after that, and I was relieved to know that I wouldn't run into Jim again. Let me take you back about 5 years ago when I was working the closing shift at Walmart. Working late nights at a big store like Walmart can be pretty mundane most of the time. You're restocking shelves, helping customers find what they need, and trying to stay awake until your shift ends. But one night, something happened that turned my ordinary shift into a bone-chilling experience I'll never forget. It was around 11 and I was doing my usual rounds, checking inventory and straightening up the aisles. That's when I noticed him. A haggard-looking man, frantically pacing the store, his eyes darting around as if searching for something, or someone. Now, it's not unusual to see all kinds of people in a Walmart, but there was something about this man that set off alarm bells in my head. His clothes were dirty and torn, and he had a wild look in his eyes that made me a little nervous. I approached him cautiously, asking if he needed any help finding something. The man stopped in his tracks, his gaze locking onto mine. "I need a few things," he said in a raspy voice. "A tarp, a shovel, and some duct tape." I must admit, his request caught me off guard. Those weren't exactly the typical items people come to Walmart for, especially not this late in the night. But I tried to stay calm and professional, nodding and telling him I'd show him where to find those items. As we walked through the store, the man kept glancing over his shoulder, as if he was being followed. This really made me uneasy, but I tried to focus on helping him find what he needed. We went to each aisle where the tarps, shovels, and duct tape were, and I pointed out the different options. The man grabbed the largest tarp and a couple of rolls of duct tape, but when he reached for a shovel, his hand hesitated. "Do you have anything smaller?" he asked, his eyes narrowing. I shook my head, explaining that the shovels we had were all standard size. The man seemed disappointed, but ultimately decided to go with the regular shovel. After he paid for his items, I watched him leave the store. He got into an older model Ford van and drove off. I could just feel that something wasn't right. I mentioned the encounter to my manager, who brushed it off as just another strange customer encounter. But deep down, I kept thinking about how disheveled he looked, and the combination of items he asked for and bought. A few days later, I heard about a missing woman on the news. She was a beautiful woman with blonde hair in her mid-20s. What the news report revealed next creeped me out to no end. They showed a photo of the man that was reported to be the last person seen with her. It matched the man I had encountered at Walmart. I was shook. The man I had helped was wanted in connection with a missing person case. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized how close I had come to a potentially dangerous situation. I called my manager and told him what I saw on the news. He called the authorities, and they came to review the video footage and ask us a few questions. The news sent shockwaves through our small town, and I couldn't help but think about how easily things could have gone differently that night at Walmart. It was a wake-up call, a reminder that danger can lurk in the most unexpected places. As for the man, he was eventually apprehended and brought to justice. But the experience left me with a newfound sense of caution and awareness. You never know who you might encounter, especially during the closing shift at Walmart. It was a typical evening, and I found myself at Walmart, browsing through the aisles in search of the perfect birthday gift for my niece. She was turning 6, so I wanted to get her something really special. The store was bustling with shoppers, the aisles filled with chatter and laughter. But this trip to Walmart would turn into a haunting experience I'd never forget. As I made my way to the toy section, my eyes fell on a little girl standing among the shelves of dolls and action figures. She looked out of place, dressed in old-fashioned clothes that seemed to belong to another era. Curiosity piqued. I approached her, thinking she might be lost or looking for her parents. "Hey there, sweetie," I said with a warm smile. "Are you okay? Do you need help finding someone?" The girl turned to me, her eyes wide and filled with an eerie gaze. She didn't speak, but her gaze seemed to pierce right through me. I thought it was odd, but I brushed it off, thinking she might be shy or simply lost in thought. I continued browsing the toys, trying to shake off the unease that lingered from my encounter with the mysterious girl. But everywhere I went, it just felt creepy. It felt like someone was watching me and following my every move. As I reached for a doll on the shelf, I heard a soft giggle behind me. I turned, expecting to see the little girl, but she was nowhere to be found. Instead, there was only an empty aisle, devoid of any other shoppers. At that moment, a shiver ran down my spine as I realized I was alone in that section of the store. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, that the girl had simply wandered off, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I decided to leave the toy section and head towards the checkout, eager to finish my shopping and leave the eerie atmosphere behind. But as I walked, I still felt like I was being watched. Then I heard a faint whisper, like a child's voice carried in the air. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The whisper grew louder, more insistent, and I realized it was coming from the aisle I had just walked out of. I turned back and returned to the aisle where I had seen the little girl. What I saw next scared the living crap out of me. The toys on the shelves were moving. Dolls giggled and twisted their heads. Action figures twitched and jerked as if they were alive. It was like something out of an episode of The Twilight Zone, and I couldn't believe my eyes. But the most chilling sight was yet to come. In the midst of the animated toys stood the little girl, her form flickering like a ghostly apparition. She looked at me with a sad expression, as if she wanted to tell me something. I took a step back, my mind racing with fear and confusion. How could this be happening? Was I losing my mind? Just then, a store employee approached me, a concerned look on his face. "Ma'am, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I tried to explain what I had witnessed, but the employee shook his head, dismissing it as a trick of the light or my imagination. He led me away from the toy section, reassuring me that everything was fine. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something supernatural had occurred in that Walmart store. As I checked out and left the store, I couldn't help but glance back across the store, half expecting to see the little girl again. Days passed, and I couldn't stop thinking about the haunting encounter I had while shopping. I wanted to bring it up to family and friends in conversation, but didn't want to seem like I had lost my mind. And then, one night, as I lay in bed, I heard a soft giggle coming from the corner of my room. I turned on the light, expecting to see nothing but darkness, but what I saw made my blood run cold. Standing there in the faint glow of the nightlight was the little girl from Walmart. She looked at me with sad eyes, a silent plea in her gaze. "I just wanted to play," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't move. It was like I was trapped in a nightmare, facing a ghostly visitor in my own home. I closed my eyes as tightly as I could, and when I opened them, she was gone. I never returned to that Walmart store, haunted by the memory of the ghostly encounter. Thankfully, that was the first and last time I saw her in my home. To this day, I wonder about the little girl and what she wanted to tell me. Was she a lost soul, trapped between worlds, or was she a harbinger of something more sinister? Thanks for watching. Don't miss out on more spine-chilling tales. Subscribe now for weekly scares. Hit that red button and join our journey into the unknown.